Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Acquire from Renegade Games. Acquire is an older title that's been around for quite some time. I want to say it's a 1964 if memory serves correctly, but I might be slightly off about that. But it's gone through a variety of publishers, and the game is a stock-taking hotel mergers and acquisitions game, which players are trying to acquire the most money throughout the course of the game through basically having the most shares and then dealing with the various stockholder bonuses and payouts that will happen throughout the game. That's the general idea. In the game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking these 6 tiles. You have 6 tiles in front of you at any given point. Fun fact, by the way, these tiles, as nice as they are, if you hold them up to the light, I can probably do this over here. If I grab a tile over here and I hold it up to the light, I can probably, that's like a 9E, I want to say. Let's see. 9E. You can go ahead and actually see these if you hold up to bright light. I think about those things because this game is actually in World Series of Board Gaming in WSBG, and because of that, it means that it is a game that is, well, I think about, how you can possibly cheat in it. Anyways, neither here nor there. Point is, in this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to take one tile, you're going to place it onto the board, and you're going to see whether that causes a new hotel to form, or alternatively a merger or acquisition to form. And the reason you're doing this is so you can go ahead and develop the board and buy shares in stock and try to manipulate what forms into what gets sold, how to ensure you get money coming into you throughout the course of the game, because it's very important to do so. But basically, you take a single tile over here, let's take 8D, and 8D is going to go onto the board, and it's going to be added to this hotel. Nothing fancy over there. We're going to grab another tile over here, we're going to grab a tile and put it back in front of us, and then someone else will go ahead and take their turn. Nothing fancy happens, we just expanded the size of a hotel chain. Or alternatively, we found a new hotel. When we put this tile down here, 2H, that's going to allow us to pick one of the hotels that's not in play, put it down, and now we've go ahead and built that. We get a share of founder stock as well, and that's going to go in front of us. That's some stock we have, but additionally, you have the opportunity to buy other shares of stock when that happens. Well, not when that happens. In general, on your turn, you're going to first place a token, place a tile down, dealing with the ramifications that happens there, and then you go ahead and buy up to 3 shares of other stock, utilizing this price list over here. You're going to look at the specific hotel. There's 3 different sizes or types of hotels in the game. There's 8 total hotels, or 7 total hotels, but 3 different categories. You look at the size of it. So, for example, if I wanted to buy stock in that yellow one I just built, that's size 2. That's going to be $400 per it. I can go ahead and buy 3 shares of orange right now. Let's go ahead and do that. It's going to cost me $1,200. So I'm going to go ahead and pay $1,200 in order to go ahead and take 3 shares of orange stock, which may pay off in a second. I say in a second. At the end of our turn, we're going to go ahead and draw a new tile from the board. We're going to put it in front of us, and then now I can go ahead and show you why I wanted that orange stock. Not necessarily because, well, let's just show you how this plays out. Because the other thing that can happen is if a player places this tile down over here, that's going to create a merger. When you merge 2 hotels, you're going to have a merger, and the larger hotel chain will acquire the smaller hotel chain. We'll place that face down for right now to indicate that's the linking piece. This size 2 orange is acquired by the size 6 yellow, and that means we're going to first pay a stockholder bonus to whoever has the most shares of orange. So over here, orange at a size 2, you're going to pay $4,000 to whoever has the most shares, $2,000 to whoever has the second most shares, unless you're playing on the Tycoon mode, in which case it's a slightly different payout. Tycoon mode, we're not going to heavily go into it. It just changes some of the numbers in the game as far as having more payouts going on in the game. But past that, going back to the regular side over here, so you're first going to pay out those stockholder bonuses, but then when you're done with that, the players who have shares left in orange, because orange is now gone from the game, players who have shares in orange have 3 choices. They can either go ahead and trade in their shares at a 2-for-1 ratio for the larger hotel. So if I have 4 shares of orange, I can go ahead and put it back in the bank and go ahead and take out 2 shares of yellow instead, because after all, yellow is bigger and larger and has more of a table presence in the game. Or you can sell orange for the price listed. A size 2 orange will sell for $400, which is what I paid for it. I don't want to do that. Or lastly, you can simply hold on to you can hold on to orange, because at some point, orange will be placed back onto the board with a new hotel chain. You're going to repeat that cycle until one of 2 endgame conditions occur. Either you have a size 41, you have a hotel of size 41, or alternatively, if you determine all other hotels on the board are safe from mergers and acquisitions in the game. And that's basically how you play Acquire. The rules are actually pretty straightforward and simple. At the end of the game, you're going to go ahead and resolve stockholder bonuses for everyone in play, see who has the most money, cash out all your stocks to the current market value, and then determine most money to see the winner of the game. Those are the rules of Acquire. They are pretty straightforward. They're not overly complicated or convoluted, but the strategy, the complications of the game come through the strategy, come through the decisions you're making as you try to figure out how you optimize around what's happening here, how you plan for the mergers, how you feed into one stock versus another, where do you want to place your bets in this game, what other players seem to be doing, and try to ultimately determine an empire that will get you as much money as possible while ensuring you have constant cash flow in the game, because every single turn you can buy up to 3 shares of other hotels, but as they get larger and larger, you will need the cash flow, which means you both need to be buying into things, but you also need to have some of the things you are buying, have them bought out, and so that you can go ahead and earn those stockholder bonuses, because you'll need that money to fund your further acquisitions in the world of Acquire. And with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into our review, starting off with ease of play. Like I said already, the rules in this are very, very short. Acquire is a game that has, 4 or 5 pages of rules, fairly easy to pick up. The most complicated thing to do is the steps for resolving a merger, and look at that. They have them printed out over here. They have both the turn sequence on one side and the steps for a merger on the other on a large player aid, making your life incredibly easy as you try to figure out exactly what you do in this game. So overall, rules are fairly simple. The strategy is a lot more. Game time does range, but you're generally looking at around an hour for a play of Acquire. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is there's a lot of strategy in how to play this game. The rules are incredibly simple. You place down a tile, you resolve what happens, either developing a new hotel or resolving any mergers in the game, but then past that, you need to figure out what you're doing and how. How you hold that tile is a big part of this game, is you're going to have tiles in front of you, and knowing when to hold things back so you can determine and influence the state of the board is incredibly key. It is so compelling or appealing as a first-time player to simply want to create a hotel every chance you get, but that's not where the core strategy of this game can be. You want to know when to hold things back, when to hold onto a tile so you can establish things the right way, when to utilize something for a merger and acquisition. Having key leverage points across the course of the game is so key, but then again, so is that first share of founder stock when you start a hotel chain, and so you're always being pulled in different directions, and you have to know how to keep an eye on the players at the table as you play through things. One thing we didn't talk is that in the game, shares and money are either public or private. Determine that before you start the game, whether you're playing with public or private shares and money, which will vastly change how you approach this game, whether you're focusing purely on the strategy and leaving the memory out of it, or whether the memory and the general consciousness of what's going on at the table, whether it's going to determine how things play out. The mergers in the game, the mergers in Acquire can be incredibly satisfying, understanding how to build out this board, because this is a vast empire that's going to be unfolding on the table in front of you, and understanding how to actually place things down, where to build into, what seems to be the wave of the future versus what's important to have as your quick monetary cash out so that you can actually have your economy going into the game. It keeps Acquire tense the entire time. This is a game that it's going to be a challenging puzzle of both knowing how to spend your money, but also how to conserve your money so you have the right shares at the right time as you play. Now, there are a few things that I dislike about Acquire. First of all, going to this particular version, while I do think this is the best combination of price point and components that I've seen in Acquire in a while, it's still not perfect. First of all, they're missing a bag. There's no bag to hold these tiles over here, which means unless you're willing to turn over every single tile in the game, which frankly is annoying and usually has things turning back out, this is what you're left with, a giant pile of hopefully face down tiles that you can also hold up to the light and see them, and there's no tray to hold your tile, so it is a good price point relative to the components, but I do wish there were, I definitely wish there was a bag. The tray part, I'll acknowledge most people's setups on the game do not have you being able to look into a tile from the reverse, so that's part probably fine. But I wish there was a bag in play. I still hate paper money, but it is what it is. I think most versions of Acquire have had paper money, so it is what it is there. But I really want that bag. Everything else I can kind of live with or think is pretty good. I'll say that additionally, the game kind of has a choice in terms of you either have a memory component or you have a micromanaging component. Meaning when you play Acquire, if you're playing with your money and your shares hidden from other players, that introduces inherently a memory aspect. The player that can more accurately track and memorize what's going on in the game is going to have an advantage over players who don't. But the flip side is if you have open money and shares in the game, then alternatively it can turn into a micromanaging game as players try to constantly count, recount, as they try to figure out exactly, well, if you have 4 of this and 7 of those and 2 of those and you have that much money, it can become either a memory game or a micromanaging game when you play Acquire. You have to choose which lane you're going to end up there. I'll also say there's lots of checking the grid in the game. There's lots of constantly looking at your own hand of tiles and looking back and forth at the grid, trying to see where things are, where things will end up. It's just a small tedious aspect in that because of the nature of just having a ton of tiles in the game that you're using to fill out the board. But overall, those are the small aspects of Acquire that hold it back for me. But there are a few things that might make it a game that might not be right for you. And the first of those is that the fact that there's a lot of luck of the draw in the game. Acquire is very similar to poker in the sense that yes, of course, there's luck in what you draw, but there's also what you as a player manage to do with that. And so it's definitely times that you'll draw the perfect tile for you, and you'll have entire games that do swing on a good or bad tile draw. That can happen. But more often than not, I'll say that it does fall into that category of you will have a degree of luck, but also a degree of agency over how you play the game, because across the course of the game, that luck will semi-balance out as you go through it. But there's no question, there is luck of the draw present here at the same time, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that luck balancing out over time, and or just players using their skill to mitigate for that aspect. And secondly, I'll say that the money management can be crushing in the game if you don't know how to be on top of it. Acquire is a game where it's very easy to focus on the wrong things. It's very easy to feed into that large hotel that's building and building and building, and then run out of money and not have any stockholder bonus plan in place that's going to feed your continued investments into the city as it rises up around you. If you don't make sure to be investing in both hotels that will be swallowed, as well as the hotels that are growing across the board, you'll find yourself with the right stock, but never having the opportunity to invest and get it back and put it into more and more money. So you do need to be very mindful of how to play the game, lest you find yourself a few turns in realizing you have no more money to buy more shares even as the city continues to grow around you. As far as final thoughts on Acquire, Acquire is a really solid game that has stood the test of time very well. I mean, this game's been around for 60-ish years, and it's been through company after company, constantly reprinted for a good reason, and it's because it is a hybrid of a good gateway merge and acquisition game while also being so strategically sound that it is held up in the rule simplicity and strategic depth over a long period of time. This is one of the first games that had mergers in my collection, and it stuck around for a long time because of that. It has since been supplanted by some other games that I think do it better, but we'll talk about that shortly. But for me, Acquire, the combination of rule simplicity and strategic depth had it as a game that I really value and respect, and for me it's a 3.5 out of 5. It is a very good game. It is on the simpler side as far as the nuance or depth of things going on, and there is a lot of luck of the draw, and so it's a game that both is incredibly well done for the age that it is, while also still feeling like a game that is a game from the 1960s. It does feel like a game that is further back in game design, that was again incredibly accomplished for its time, but has since had games like this have been done better in my opinion since then. So both an enjoyable game, a game that I respect, but also being one that is held back a bit at the same time, a 3.5 out of 5. Speaking of which, as far as the other game recommendations, for me the mergers and acquisitions game that has no other competitor, for me at least so far, is Indonesia from Splatter Games. Has a degree of managing mergers and acquisitions in a game that is also fairly light on the rules, not as light as Acquire, but fairly light on the rules, while being incredibly strategically sound as you go through that game. I think Indonesia is absolutely fantastic, although the rules are, again, even though they're easy-ish, they are definitely much more than you'll find in Acquire. And then secondly, if you're looking for another game that has not really mergers, but stocks to a degree, but is also gives you that fun, appealing simplicity, but, you know, strategically rewarding, Stockpile from Navu Games is a game that's going to give you less so on the mergers, but yes on the stocks, and a game that's, well, a stock market. A simple, accessible stock market is going to be Stockpile from Navu Games. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.